Hi, today we're going to talk about plagiarism. Now, I don't want you to rush through this video because if you make a mistake in this area, it could ruin all your studies. So you need to listen carefully to this video and listen to all of it. So, what does plagiarism mean? Well, broadly speaking, it's cheating. And in the following slides, I'm going to show you exactly how we define cheating. So you will need to be aware of all the various practices that are defined as cheating. Now, the first point I want to make about cheating is that we do not look the other way. This is not something that we say, oh yes, we've talked to them about plagiarism, and then we ignore it. We actively pursue people who are clearly guilty of copying, and there are various ways in which that happens. So please don't be under any illusions. This is not an institution that condones plagiarism in any way whatsoever. So, the consequence of being found guilty of plagiarism is that your module score would be reduced to 0, and as it says there, all other modules that you've taken up to that date, their marks can also be reduced to 0. Finally, a number of students, when we talk to them about plagiarism, are concerned not about plagiarism but about being accidentally accused of plagiarism when they are innocent. Can I assure you that if you behave honestly, you will not be accused of plagiarism? The only time that somebody is accused of plagiarism and the case subsequently dropped is if it is felt that you haven't plagiarized sufficiently, right? So it's always a matter of degree of guilt, but there's never any question when we take a case forward for plagiarism, there's never any question that plagiarism has been committed. So please, if you are honest, you have nothing to fear from this, but at the same time it will be of interest for you to have a good idea as to how we define plagiarism in its many forms. So you need still to continue to listen. Okay, so when we look at the Turnitin system, which you will be familiar with, we see your work on the computer screen and it gets colored up in this way, which again you should be reasonably familiar with. So this one is an example here where you can see the student has, well, to put the best on it, the student has paraphrased unsuccessfully. It's the Turnitin system picks it up and it realizes that these words here are linked with these words, which are linked with these words, and there have just been some words changed in between. This is not a good way of studying. If anyone has told you that paraphrasing is a good way of writing an essay, they're wrong, and you need to avoid this kind of cutting and pasting into your work and then just changing a few words. This is bad practice. You're not thinking about what's being written, you're just patching together somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's work, and making a few minor irrelevant changes to what you're copying. So this clearly is cheating. There's another example which we're going to have a look at in a moment, and here you can see that an author has been quoted here, but the quote has not been successful. After reading that, it still looks as if it is that student's own commentary when Turnitin is telling us, no, this student has copied this source and has just again changed a few words. So this is an example of cheating, of plagiarism. Okay, so we looked at in the previous slide, we looked at an author and then a commentary on an author. Here's a clearer case. Here you can see that this author de Mello has been mentioned, but we can see from the subsequent writing that what the student is claiming is their analysis is in fact a quote from the author. So and there have been again some minor changes. Now Turnitin doesn't always pick up the original quote. Sometimes it picks up another quote from another source that maybe has already tried to change it. So a complete quote, if we go back to the original source, we might find that it actually includes some of these other words as well. So if we just take the purple area as being the quote, what the student should have done is to put in inverted commas like that. Okay, now that clearly tells the reader that these are words that are not the student's, but they are taken from the source, in this case de Mello. So it's as simple as that in many ways. If the words are not yours, then they should be in inverted commas, and Turnitin traces the source so that we know if they're not yours. Here is an example of a student who is getting it right. So that is right. Look, you can see there clearly marked in the text inverted commas. Turnitin may have not picked up the original source, as I was saying, and therefore it hasn't picked up the whole of the quote. But it's clear that it is the words are from Gabriel, 1972, page 99. Now obviously later in this essay there should be references, and we would expect to see Gabriel and the rest of the reference there. And here again, as you can see, this is a successful quote, inverted commas, author, year and page number. The idea is simply that the reader, if they think, oh yeah, that's an interesting quote, I want to go back and see the rest of it, or I want to read all of his thoughts, then you can do that. And that is why the page reference must be included. Now here is an example where it's not extensive quoting from one source. It looks rather odd, doesn't it? Look, it's the colour is just spattered over the page, just a few words here and there. What's going on? In particular, if you look at this, look, they found 200 instances of these little quotes. Well, what this student has done he's probably gone to a source and asked somebody else to write his assessment. So this we call ghost writing. You are not the author, someone else has done it. Well, that person will make sure that he gets paid before you get marked, so that if you get caught, well, that's tough luck, and there are plenty of cheats in this world, so he'll just move on to the next sucker. So it does show up. We can trace it. There are other ways we can trace it. We get students who've barely got through the course suddenly quoting us maths at PhD level. We get people quoting sources that are not part of the course, using methods that have not been taught and so on, and are not in the student's background. So there are a number of indicators that the student is not the author of the piece of work, and so we will pursue those cases, and you will have to try to prove that you are the author of the work, which is one of the reasons why we say that if you are conducting interviews or questionnaires, you must keep all the material, because if you are questioned over authenticity, you will have the evidence there to support it. Note that on the right hand side of our screen we can delve further into all the references quoted in the text area. Note that honesty is not impossible. It is quite possible to have a clean page. Some little 2 or 3 word combinations may be picked up accidentally, but it's surprising how Turnitin manages to sense that a page is clear. So it doesn't, please don't think that every piece of work is spattered with these coloured references. That is not the case, and students submit work with similarity scores, which we'll have a look at in a second. 10% and below is not unusual at all. So here are some simple rules to avoid plagiarism altogether, and you can see them all laid out here. You need to follow these rules. They may sound like just plain common sense, but following them can be difficult. But you need to train yourself to do that. First of all, discuss your work with others, yes, but do not show or exchange your work with someone else. That person, without your permission, may start plagiarizing your essay, and Turnitin will pick that up. In cases such as that, both students are treated as being guilty of plagiarism. We don't get involved of, oh, he copied from me, no, he copied from me, that kind of thing. You're both guilty. So don't start sharing your work around, but discuss your work by all means. In fact, we would encourage that. At master's level, we want to encourage a more collegiate atmosphere. Number 2 here, very simply, do not cut and paste work into the final draft, into the draft version or final version of anything that you intend to hand in. I appreciate cutting and pasting. I write myself, I do cutting and pasting, but I put it in a different file, and you must always keep it in a different file and never copy it into your final version. Okay, so that's the top one done, that's that one done. Now, the use of handwritten notes, I know it sounds old-fashioned, but it doesn't do any harm in your studies to think of just making some handwritten notes. Sometimes I put comments, etc., in a spreadsheet where each line is a particular author, just to remind myself. If you download a PDF file, I like to save my PDF files by the author's name. That's how you tend to remember these things. Number 4, use your memory, right? Your memory is not as bad as you think. The advantage of using your memory is that your mind connects things far better than attempting to sort of just connect it through notes or whatever. When you think about something, you think in a more holistic way, and then what you write from your memory reads much more smoothly. Some people think they're very clever and can beat the system. I hope I've shown enough of the system to you for you to realize that that kind of thing is not going to work. Now remember, you may have copied in the past and you may have got away with it. Well, if you carry on doing it, you're a bit like the mouse and we're the cat. We're looking at you, and you come a little bit too close, we may not do anything. But you come a little bit further and we pounce. We only have to catch you once. So don't be mice is the answer to that one. Number 6 is just a little thing. Quoting from textbooks looks bad. Textbooks are there for you to understand it. If you quote from a textbook, it kind of has the little suspicion of, I didn't understand what was in the textbook, but maybe you, the reader, does, and therefore I'm going to quote it. So that's a completely wrong thing to do. I've had people quote from a book I've written on the definition of an exchange rate. Well, I mean, that's daft. Okay, so the only way you can really get a handle on that is to understand the subject, and you would know that quoting a definition of an exchange rate is a silly thing to do. But there's nothing that gets around a good knowledge of the subject, and a lack of knowledge shows up in so many different ways, and that's just one of them. Okay, number 7, you can get your English checked, but preferably by someone who does not know the subject but can tell you that a sentence does not make sense and that you need to go away and write it again. So that kind of checking is fine. Getting someone else to go over and start changing things for you is ghost writing, so you don't want to do that. Then the final thing, follow our guidance. We are on your side. We don't want you to be taking a lot of work and trouble over everything. We know the efficient path through a problem. So even though you may think, oh, that's going to take time, sometimes it's worthwhile investing a bit of time earlier to save yourself time later on. So following our guidance is a simple thing to do and the right thing. This is what we see when we are marking. We have the students' names here, the title that they've given to the work, the similarity score. Now many students try to use the similarity score as a kind of gateway. I'm all right if I'm below 20% or something like that. It's not quite like that. It depends what is being copied. We had a good example the other day where someone had conducted interviews as part of his dissertation, and it was a very low similarity score overall, except for the quotes from the managers. That was copied from another source, so clearly he hadn't undertaken any interviews at all. So just having a low similarity score does not necessarily mean that you are in the clear. This does go up. It does go up quite alarmingly, and it's just, well, as you can see, it starts to go up. If it gets to 25%, then we get rather concerned. I'm also concerned about 0% as well. I have a quick check on those. The system does also come up with warning signs over here if it detects attempts to evade the Turnitin system. So it's quite sophisticated in that respect. Okay, so that's what we see. There is no clear similarity score, and also remember that the Turnitin system takes time to go through all the possible links. So if you do it the day before, you might find it only comes up in the first hour with, say, a 10% similarity, but then after 2 or 3 days, by the time we look at it, the similarity score has gone up to 60% and you're in deep trouble. But then clearly that would be an example of somebody who thinks they can beat the system, and then the system has beaten them. So if it's above 25%, you know that the work is not your own. It's just not possible that it could be otherwise. This is a grade descriptor, as we call them. It's not actually the one that we publish now. It's moved on, but it's one that was particularly clear and detailed. I don't know why they moved on from it, but as you can see there, it says use these skills to develop an argument which is well structured. That is what we're looking for, your ability to put together an argument that is well referenced and well structured, referenced properly, and it does not necessarily have to be filled with quotes. And a good grasp of recent research findings, that depends on the subject, and that's possibly why it was changed a bit, but critically evaluating concepts, that's what we also look for. This idea of looking at something and seeing, in the social sciences nothing is perfect, but seeing what the problem is and how the attempt to solve it is good in parts but not in others. Okay, so that's the grading we give, the kind of thinking we go through when awarding a grade of 60 to 69, which is kind of the target that everyone should be aiming at. Okay, that's it, and just keep honest, enjoy your studies, and plagiarism will not be a problem for you.